This is the video for Module 1, Subtracting Decimals. You subtract decimals the same way that you add decimals, so we're going to do some review. So if we have 5/10, that looks like this. And if we have 3/10, that looks like this. And we know that this makes 2/10, which is this. But now we're going to do one when they're not so obvious and not so easy in the steps that we have to take. So we have 7 ones and 5 thousands. So here's my ones, and we're going all the way out to the thousandths place. So I have 7 ones and I have 5 thousands, and I need to fill in the placeholders of my zeros. Then I have 2 ones and 3 thousandths. So I have ones all the way out to my thousandths. So I have 2 ones, 3 thousandths. I have to fill in my zeros. Now I can subtract the two. When I subtract the two, I just make sure that I line up my decimals, which is really lining up my place value. And I have to make sure that I'm paying attention to the operation, which is subtraction. We bring our decimal right down, and we end up with 5 and 2 thousandths. Next, we have 9 hundredths and 5 hundredths. Hundreds is all the way out here. Hundredths is out to here. So we have 9 hundredths, 5 hundredths. We fill everything else in with zeros. Then over here, all I have is 3 hundredths. So now I'm going to subtract by stacking. I'm going to line up my decimals. Any empty spot that I have, I am going to fill in with zeros. It is a good habit to get into even when you don't need them. When you subtract decimals, what do I need to make sure I do? I need to line up my place value. And I do this by using my decimal. And I need to use 0 as a placeholder. Next, 83 tenths. Tenths end here. So I have to end there. So I can go backwards. Now I want to line them up by their place value. I subtract just like I would subtract regular numbers. I cannot do 3 minus 4. So I have to borrow from the 8 and make it a 7. This becomes 13. And I end up with 1 and 9 tenths. Next, right here, once again, we have 6 ones and 4 tenths. Now that I have it, I can line it all up so that I can subtract. I cannot do 2 minus 4, so I have to borrow from the 9. 12 minus 4 is 8. 8 minus 6 is 2, with bringing my decimal straight down. Next, simple enough, we're just going to line them up. This time it's already in standard form. We're going to subtract by lining everything up. I cannot do 1 minus 2, so I borrow from the 3 and I make it a 2, and this becomes 11. 11 minus 2 is 9. I cannot do 2 minus 9, so I borrow from the 6. I apologize. I borrow from the 8, which makes this a 7. And this a 12. I bring down my decimal, and there's my answer. Now over here, I line up my numbers by the decimal, which lines up their place value. I notice I have an empty spot, so I have to put a 0 in there. And now I subtract. I cannot do 0 minus 9, and I can't borrow from the 0, so I go all the way over to the 4, make this a 10. Now I can cross that out and make it a 9 and make that a 10. The last example, over here we have a 6. We have to remember that when we have a whole number, when you have a whole number, there's really a decimal right here. So now it makes it easier to line up my numbers. Now I have to make sure this is one of those cases. It's really important I put those zeros in here because I can't just write the 0 and the 8 on the bottom. Then I have to subtract, so I have to do some borrowing again. And now I have subtracted using the place value to help me line everything up. And that's how you subtract decimals.